You've heard that with enough money, you can buy anything. In 1868, the richest man in America set out to prove it. He tried to buy a railroad, quietly, completely, every last share. He had beaten everyone before. He was about to learn there was exactly one thing his fortune couldn't beat: a printing press. This is the story of how three con men kept a titan from buying a company by simply printing more of it faster than he could buy it, and how, when that wasn't enough, they bought the only thing bigger than money, the law itself. Start with the man doing the buying, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Everyone called him the Commodore. He had clawed his way up from a teenage ferryman to the most powerful businessman in the country, first in steamships, then in railroads. His method was simple and merciless. When he wanted a company, he bought its stock until he owned it, and then he owned the people inside it too. By the late 1860s, he had swallowed the railroads running into New York City. Only one prize was left: the Erie Railroad, the line that ran west into the rest of the country. Control the Erie, and Vanderbilt would control nearly all the rail traffic into the biggest city in America. He decided to take it the way he always did. He told his brokers to buy every share of Erie they could find. Money was no object. He was Cornelius Vanderbilt. The stock would run out, the company would be his, and that would be that. It should have worked. Here's why it didn't. Inside the Erie sat three of the most shameless operators in American history. Daniel Drew, the railroad's treasurer, a wiry old cattle trader who preyed on Sundays and swindled on weekdays. Jay Gould, quiet, brilliant, and utterly cold, the real strategist. And Jim Fisk, loud, fat, laughing, a former circus hand who treated fraud like show business. They watched Vanderbilt's brokers hoovering up Erie stock, and instead of panicking, they smiled. Because the Erie ring controlled something the Commodore couldn't: the company's own printing press. Here's the trick: follow the paper. The Erie had issued bonds that could be legally converted into new shares of stock, so Gould and his partners simply converted them. Crate after crate of brand new Erie shares, freshly printed, dropped onto the market, and Vanderbilt's brokers, under orders to buy everything, bought those too. Think about what that means. Vanderbilt was trying to buy up a fixed thing. They turned it into an infinite thing. Every time he bought a stack of shares, they printed another. Fisk said it best: as long as that printing press didn't break down, he'd give the old man all the Erie he wanted. The Commodore poured in something like $7 million and watched it vanish into paper that the other side could manufacture for the cost of ink. Vanderbilt did what powerful men do when they're losing. He went to a judge. He had a friendly New York judge issue orders against the Erie ring, injunctions, arrest warrants, the machinery of the law aimed straight at Drew, Gould, and Fisk. And for a moment it looked like the Commodore would win in the courtroom what he'd lost in the market. So the Erie ring grabbed the company's cash, millions of dollars, reportedly stuffed into bags and a trunk, and ran. They crossed the Hudson River to New Jersey, out of New York's reach, and barricaded themselves in a hotel in Jersey City. Fisk posted guards and even a small cannon on the waterfront and called it Fort Taylor. America's most important railroad was now being run by fugitives from a hotel across the river. But here's the thing about that printed stock: it was only worth fighting over if it was legal, and whether it was legal would be decided in one place: the New York State legislature up in Albany. So that became the real battlefield. Not the market, not the courts, the lawmakers. And lawmakers, it turned out, were for sale. Jay Gould went up to Albany with a satchel full of cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and started handing it out to state legislators to pass a bill making all that freshly printed Erie stock legal. Vanderbilt sent his own money up to Albany to kill the bill. So for a few weeks in 1868, the lawmakers of New York sat in the middle and let two of the richest men in America bid against each other for their votes. One observer joked that a legislator could be bought. The only question was by whom, and for how much. In the end, Gould simply outbid the Commodore. The legislature passed the bill. The printed stock became legal. The fraud was now the law. Vanderbilt knew when he was beaten. He settled, took a payout to make the war go away, swallowed his losses, and let the Erie go. The most powerful businessman in America had been fought to a standstill by three swindlers and a cooperative government. And the winners, they barely paused. Jay Gould took control of the Erie and kept right on going. Within a year, he'd try something even bigger, a scheme to corner the entire nation's supply of gold and nearly break the American economy in a single day. But that's the next story. The lesson of the Erie War is the uncomfortable one. We like to think the richest man always wins. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes the man who wins is just the one most willing to buy the referee. This is Rags to Riches, the rise and the ruin of the world's greatest fortunes. Last time, a fortune made of paper burned to ash. This time, the paper won. Next time, one of these same men reaches for all the gold in America. Subscribe and find out what happens when he grabs it.